Welcome to hell, motherfucker!
Hey guys, Jim here. Welcome back once again. Today we're going to be taking a look at another truly remarkable knife from Ketuo Knives. Now, if you haven't watched any of my previous videos on Ketuo Knives, they're basically in a partnership in business and manufacturing with Reich Knives. And I've covered a lot of Reich Knives on my channel over the past 7 or 8 years. And they've gone from being cool knives to being really, really good knives to being stellar, outstanding designs with incredible actions. And they've quickly become one of those brands that I've really come to absolutely love and look forward to their newest designs. And this is one that is as new as they come. Now, typically when I see a front flipper, I completely ignore the knife. No matter how nice the knife is, once I see that damn front flipper, it's immediately just pushed off and I don't care about it. But I'm glad I didn't have that mindset when I saw this, because yes, it is a front flipper, but you'll notice, as horrible as I am historically with front flippers, I can actually front flip it. But here's the best part. The machining in this blade, which really is decorative, actually comes out to be very, very functional. So you've got a very deep channel right in here that allows you to, well, I guess you really can't do it with your thumb, but you can reverse flick this so easily, which has become a regular method for me with a lot of different knives. I do wish there was a flipper tab. Obviously, instinctually, I go straight for that area and it's not there. I'm not one that's going to change the position of a knife in my hand so that I can front flip it. But to know that I can reverse flick this like so many other knives that I love makes this a viable option for me to carry. And I'm really happy for that because, as you saw in the photography, this is a sleek, futuristic, sexy, beautiful design. I love how this knife came out. Now, normally when you see something this futuristic and with so many angles and bevels and everything else in it, a lot of times they're going to be a very flat frame knife, and this is not. You've actually got a nice, see if I can get the camera to focus on it. How about now? How about if I just do this? Can I put my hand there? There we go. You've got a nice convex contoured frame that I wasn't expecting at all. So not only does it look really cool, but it feels really, really good in the hand. And the action is exactly what I would expect from Ketuo and from Reich Knives. So let's go ahead and break this down. We're going to get into the TLDW, which as always covers the pros and the cons. Then after that, we'll talk about the specs. Then after that, I'll give you all my final personal thoughts and the full-scale review of the knife. Oh man, this thing is just so beyond cool, it's ridiculous. Okay, the first pro for me is absolutely going to be the overall design. It's futuristic. It's very, very sleek. Looks almost unlike anything else that I've seen. And it's a really good size, too. And we'll talk about that when we get into the specs. And part of that design, I love the frame window here that shows you the blade folded up into the handle. And they followed that through with not putting a window back here, but a nice little milled area that kind of matches. And even that is set into a rather interesting bevel. The very few milled lines that are in it look really, really good. And for those that haven't automatically noticed on their own, I'll go ahead and point out that this is virtually without hardware. The only exposed hardware you have on this knife are the pivot, the clip screw, and that's a single screw, and then the one screw that's holding in the steel lock bar insert. This knife is built almost like a puzzle. So basically, the way that it seems most logical to me, you've got a back spacer that's screwed into from the inside into the lock side of the frame. I'm sorry, let me reverse that. Screwed into the presentation side of the frame, and then when the lock side is put on, that's held onto the back spacer with the screw here going through the clip. Then, of course, the final bit of that would be the assembly would be the pivot screw holding in the other side of the frame together. So the result is you have a lot of press fit pins inside to give the structural integrity of the frame, and you don't have any clutter on the outside of the knife. So I think that really lends to the overall design really, really well. It helps it look very sleek, very modern, very cool. Another thing is going to be the weight of the knife. This knife is not heavy at all. And I thought it was going to be a lot heavier than it is, especially for an 8 1/4 inch overall length knife. But it really does not, I keep wanting to go back for a flipper tab. It really does not weigh a lot. Now, if you carry knives like an EMP EDC Nimble or a Brian Brown Jaeger, you're used to doing a lot of the reverse flicking off of the backside of the blade. Whether you have a flipper version of the Jaeger or not, I know I tend to reverse flick that a lot, even though it has a traditional flipper tab. So if you already know that you like flipping in that manner, then you're really going to enjoy this knife. Your finger just drops right into that little valley right there, and it catches on the inside of that fuller groove really, really nicely until I actually say that. And it's really simple to deploy. If you are a front flipper kind of person, then you're going to find this front flipper very easy to do. And if you're not really a front flipper person, I think that you're going to enjoy having that extra method of deployment that's not as disappointing as so many front flippers are. It has just the right amount of detent tension. They do a really, really good job with it. Okay, back to the pros and the cons. Another pro for me is the fact that there is a little splash of color here with the blue anodized titanium pivot collars. I like that look. And I think it would look fine if that was just regular plain titanium like the rest of the frame, but just that extra little bit adds a lot, and I think that's really, really nice. It's just a nice little touch. Of course, as I was blathering on about earlier, the action. I think the action is fantastic. No matter how you choose to open it, it's nice and snappy. And it glides closed. It's not a guillotine. It's not going to drop down on your finger and slice your finger open, but it's very, very smooth. And that's something that both Ketuo Knives and the Reich Knife Company have done so well, is create these wonderfully smooth actions. Man, I really, really dig this thing. All right, so what else is going to be super important to you? And you have to need to know. You have to know if there's a pro or a con against it. The lock bar tension is great. It's not overly heavy. It's not too light. Lockup is good. See if I can get a close up of that. And how's the blade centering? Blade centering is dead on. So the overall construction of the knife is every bit as good as how the design looks. Another big deal for me, another big pro is going to be the finishing work. So you've got a nice bead-blasted finish on the titanium, very low reflectivity, and then you have the, I don't know if it's vapor blasted or glass blasted on the blade, but there's a little bit more reflectivity, even though it's still a matte finish. And then you have on all the flat surfaces a nice horizontal satin. So you've got a really nice combination of finishes all over the knife. Yeah, then of course the fuller groove there with the much more matte bead blasted finish. I'm not really sure what the little blade window is for, but it looks cool, right? Definitely has that sci-fi look going on with these finishes. That ultra modern look, that very sleek look. And last but not least, the ergos. It feels really nice in the hand. Now you do feel the pocket clip. There's a little bit of an edge right here. It's not bad. It's certainly not a deal breaker. I've had some that were really, really rough, that were really sharp up there. And this is not that. I'm just mentioning that it does have just a little bit of an edge there. Not very much, but it is there. Now, cons. And this is not a knife filled with cons, honestly, but there's something that just keeps it from being completely mind-blowing amazing. And I think, honestly, it's the price. Now, here's where it gets weird. Because right now you're thinking, oh, that must be one heck of an expensive knife. I'm going to break out the cleaning cloth here. All right, where was I? Oh, yeah, the price. And I think the price is going to scare people off because it's so low. And that may not make a lot of sense for a lot of people that really don't spend a lot of money on knives. But when you look at a knife like this, and you look at this design, you look at the finishes, and if you were to handle it and you feel the action, and you feel the quality of the construction and how solid everything feels, then I think you're probably going to expect this to be at least $400, maybe up closer to $500. It's only $250. Now that should normally be in the pro column, right? Like, oh, it's not as expensive as it feels or it looks or it seems or anything else. But I think people are going to look at this online, and again, that's really the beauty of watching these YouTube reviews and seeing the knife in action and seeing it in 360 degrees. And if you value or trust the reviewer's opinions, it's good to hear the opinions about what makes it good. But if you don't do that, if you're really the person that just is kind of shopping online and you come across it and go, man, that's a really bold design and it looks really, really great, but it's only $250. What's wrong with it? Where are the shortcomings? What is it missing? What is it not quite hitting the mark on? And I'm here to tell you, none of that. It looks and feels and in every way seems like a much more expensive knife. If you handed this to someone that knows knives well enough to understand quality, but may not be up on all the knife values, and you handed them this knife and told them you paid $450 or $475 for it, they would have nothing negative to say. It's not like you could hand it to them and they would go, oh, that's a lot of money for this, or I don't know if I could justify that price for this when there's this knife and this knife and this knife and that knife out there for that kind of money. When you look at this for $250, you automatically get skeptical, right? And you look at the knives in your own collection and go, well, I've spent a lot more than that on high-end production knives that I've been very, very happy with. And this looks like it's in that league, but if it's only priced at $250, if the company themselves, the company whose name is on the knife, is selling it on their website for only $250, then they must know something that I'm not seeing. And that's simply not the case. It is so much nicer than the price would dictate. Now, I'm not saying Ketuo needs to raise the price on these, not at all. I'm not advocating for them to do that, so don't get mad at me. I'm just saying don't have that typical fear that you would when you see a knife that you go, wow, it's kind of a jaw-dropping design. It appeals to me on every level, but that price is too low. It cannot be as good as it looks. Put that thought out of your mind because they really, really knocked this one out of the park. And it's not just about the design. It's not just about the cool fuller groove and the topography of that blade because of it. And the finishes and everything that tie all this together. It really is a complete package, and it feels like such a robust, solid, well-built knife that every time you pick it up and put it in your hand, you go, wow, these guys are really making something special. They're making something cool. So that really, okay, if I'm backed into a corner and I have to think of another con, it would be the fact that it's a front flipper. I don't like front flippers by design. I don't like that ledge that comes up and completely disturbs the design of the knife when the blade is closed. I don't like it. And I would much, much prefer having a flipper. And a flipper, by the way, right here, yeah, a flipper tab right there would have been awesome. But that's not the route they chose to go with. And like I said, while I would normally completely discount a front flipper, I'm really glad that I didn't in this case because everything about this knife is fantastic. And I would have missed out on that because of my bias against front flippers. All right, now it's time to get into the specs of the knife. First off, the overall length of this knife is 8¼ inches. Blade length of 3.5. Now, this is what's really weird. That blade looks significantly longer because of the way this is designed. It looks like it's a 3¾ inch blade, but it's not. It's 3.5. Blade stock is 120 thousandths of an inch thick, which is a really good balance. It gives you a nice thin blade stock that makes the knife overall lightweight and easy to flick open because you don't have a lot of mass right there. And it allows them to create a very slicey blade without having to do a full grind all the way up to the spine. And your blade steel is M390, and you've got the bead blasted and vapor blasted combination of the finishes. And again, price is $250. They're available right now on Ketuo USA's website. You can go buy them right now. I do believe White Mountain Knives is a distributor for Ketuo in the US as well, so you can always check them out too. And I don't believe the pricing is going to be any different between the two websites. So whichever you prefer to purchase from, I know they're currently available as of the time that I'm recording this video. Now, I've talked about the fact that the knife feels substantial and quality in the hand, but it's lightweight. 4.1 ounces. For most people, that is going to be perfectly within their comfort zone for an EDC knife. So this is something that a lot of people will want to carry on a daily basis. It's not a special occasion carry or anything like that. You've got a good full-size knife that's not cumbersome in the pocket due to weight. It really is that satisfying. You might just sit there and make little noises every time you open it. It feels so good. So my overall thoughts on the Illusion. I love the fact that they have come up with a way to use as little exposed hardware as possible, creating a very clean design overall and giving it clean finishes. While sure, this would look great in Mokutai or Timascus or anodized in, blue or bronze or something, I like this monochromatic look, again, with that little pop of color in the blue. I think it's handsome all the way around. I love the blade finish. And I love the blade grinds, by the way. And they're a little bit hard to pick up. Let me see if I can do a tight shot here and move it around a little bit so you can actually see it better. So there is your forward tip grind there, meeting up with the primary, which by the shape of that looks like it should be a hollow ground primary, but it doesn't feel like it. So it's not a very deep hollow grind. It's a very shallow hollow grind. And then, of course, the flat grind here on the tip grind. And by the way, I've already cut a few things with this, and it is sharp. And they've done a really good job across all the knives that I've played with and all the knives that have been in my collection from them. As far as performance, they're always very, very sharp out of the box. And for those of you that have bought enough knives over the years, everybody has dealt with the disappointment of a really great knife coming in. Maybe you paid a lot of money for it. Really good looking knife. You were really excited to get it. And you go to cut something and it's just kind of like a sort of edge or even a bad edge. And as of yet, I've never received a Reich or a Ketuo at all that have ever had anything be lower than a super crazy sharp edge. So they don't just look good, they are made to perform. My overall thoughts on this knife are, man, like 8.5 out of 10. There is almost nothing that I would change about this knife. And I, for one, am very glad that they're only $250 because in this economy, it's very hard to justify the knives that we've been purchasing for so many years. $500, $800, $1,200, $1,500, $3,000, $4,000. It's so funny because you can look back and go, man, only a few years ago, I would spend tremendously more money on knives. And now I really do appreciate value in knives. Not like $20, $30, $40 knives. Meanwhile, there are a couple out there that are pretty good. I still want a knife that makes me giddy and excited and impressed like I would be with a significantly more expensive knife. And it's really good that Ketuo has the mindset that even though they're spending clearly a lot of time designing and they're executing at such a high level with the overall quality, the feel, the finishes, the action, that they're not upcharging like you would expect them to. So I think that overall, the knife itself is great. It's a good performer. It feels good in the hand, has a great action, beautiful finishes, is priced really, really competitively. I think that's probably the best way to put it. It's not a mind-blowing price, but it's a very, very good price. And I think that among its competition, this is an extraordinary value. And even among other Reich knives and other Ketuo knives, and Ketuos really are not that expensive for the most part. You know, there are a couple that do creep up a few $100s higher. And I don't see this being a world apart from those other knives. And Reich, you could get into something that's obviously just as well made, but maybe doesn't trip your trigger quite as much. And it could be almost twice this price. So I think all the way around, they've checked all the boxes and they're delivering what I feel is an outstanding value on a good quality knife. That's all I've really got to say about it. So with that, I'll leave you for now. I do have another super exciting knife that I just got from them that, you know what? Instead of leaving you hanging, I'll give you a quick little sneak peek of it just to kind of whet your appetite. You ready for this? Because this one is utterly ridiculous. Lots of Damascus bits. I'm sorry, Mokutai bits. My apologies. And the biggest surprise of all, a mosaic Damascus blade. Now, unfortunately, these are not $250. These are considerably more, but just the amount of money that these raw materials are, it's still a fantastic value, and obviously a lot of workmanship, a lot of time goes into making them. But that will be the next Ketuo that you see under my lens. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm out for now, and I'll see you on the next video.